after we've been writing about it. But I've done by now on my own 7 shows. 6 were with no words, not a single word. This new one, that's like the smallest for 5 people, it has some words, but it's not the main issue. It's not even, I think I can show it everywhere, because although I talk, in maybe it lasts 75 minutes, maybe 60 minutes are with no words. So what I mean is that silence made me a kind of link, or I was related to the objects in a way that gave me the time, the mood, the listening to kind of translate what were they talking about. That's why I like this word intérprete in Spain. In Spanish, we say intérprete to say actor, and also in English, intérprete can be the translator, no? And I felt that sometimes I was giving the words to the things to talk in their way. That's why I am all the time looking for the way that things can talk for themselves. So when I start a new process, it's almost always a new language, a new beginning, because it's not the same talking about objects that belong to you than objects that belong to somebody else or to another culture, or some objects that are from nowadays than objects that have a kind of memory, or objects that you are linked through something personal than objects that you are linked for the material. Yes? So this kind of writing, for me, it's important. And for me, it's like the beginning. That objects have a very open way to talk about life, about people, because what Paul Auster says very well is that in our everyday life, we are all the time using materials. Yes, we are with our clothes, we are living in a house, we have our rooms, we have our pockets full of things, we touch stuff all the time, and what's more important, we do that also when we are all alone. So we don't need to prove to the objects anything. We can be ourselves. And this is when something like that becomes like a mirror. And that's why sometimes you're performing and the person understands something because he's actually watching something that regards and think about himself, herself. And this is really a very very good potential of the objects that are very nice. While this last show, for example, Things Easily Forgotten, has nothing to do with it, but it has lots to do with it, of course. I was fed up working in, well, always there are practical reasons why we do something more than also artistic ones. But I wanted to enjoy performing. I've been touring lots of times, going to festival to perform once, and you get very nervous, and then you perform, and you say, well, I could have done it better, but it was setting everything, and then I have to leave. So I said, I just want to perform. My work is about this. So I did something very small, which I could do without money, and doing it anywhere. And it was, I think, Easily Forgotten. It's just for 5 people sitting around a table, and I talk about memories. Well, it's quite a big, well, for me, I came across with a pocket diary. I explained you things that maybe if you see one day the show, it's just a little spoiler, but never mind. I think it's interesting. I came across with a pocket diary from 1942. And it's been a long time. I wanted to talk about my family because they don't talk about anything. That's why I grew up in silence, and that's why I am the way I am. I mean, at home we are not very casual. It's not very normal to talk in the table about things. well, and it's not that strange. Sometimes it happens in families, yes, that we don't talk about things that really matter. And they don't really want to talk about their childhood because, of course, in Spain we had quite a difficult time with Franco from the 40s to the 70s after the war. And my parents were children then. And they don't keep that many pictures at home because they have no money and because they, you know, when you move to one place to another, there's people that threw the things away and the people like me go and get them. So this is the case of my family, and for me it had been a long time I wanted to work with it. And I came across with this pocket diary in a flea market for €1, and I bought it because I was curious. And then I showed it to my father, and he said, "Oh, that's the year I was born." And my mom said, "Oh, me too. Let's see which day I was born." And I was a bit like, "Oh my God." And that year, also 1942, I was reading Stephen Zweig. Stephen Zweig, the writer that wrote this wonderful book, Memorias de un Europeo, his memories, and talks about his history, story, and a way that you cannot travel with. And I was thinking, I would love, and he committed suicide in 1942. So it was a coincidence of dates from my family, from fiction, history, and also in an object. I had there something with so much potential I couldn't forget. And then I opened, and this pocket diary is full of sentences from Franco. So it's really very hard object. It has a lot of heavy, intention. It's so. For me, it was a very good beginning for something. So I decided to start looking for the story of this pocket diary, not the diary, more the period of it, and the story of my parents. And I went through flea markets and looked for objects that were linked to this period. So this was the kind of family objects. When I'm going to the theatre, sometimes I forget about the drama and I'm just fascinated about a character that is behind and it's just maybe had something there. Because it's being real, that's why we like animals or children in the States, because objects cannot lie. There are a couple of experiences that I was like, that was like maybe 25 years ago when I was studying. We were doing the school Macbeth, and okay, the same scene, everybody. And I was like, oh my God, I was about to die. But suddenly, Lady Macbeth was having of course, caroling with Macbeth, and the actors, blah, 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 blah. And she made like this, and the shoe made. It was like this, the scene, very low. And for me, it was, maybe she did that. But I still remember that. I don't know the actress, who was the actress. I remember nothing. I just saw that and I thought, that's Lady Macbeth. And I just forget. I don't know even the teacher. But I remember that shoe going up and down. And I said, in this, right? And what was shocking for me was that nobody talked about this. And even myself, I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I'm distracted. But I thought that moment was really the scene. That's something to say, okay, I don't care how you do it, but you have to do like that. Because when you did it happened. Or maybe you have to find a way, of course, to do it. But listen to yourself, why this arrived to this way. Yes? Well, I got it, I thought it was amazing. About El Solar, well, there are a few things I would like to tell you because it's beautiful. What we do is we do site-specific projects. So we go to a place and it comes from, we work in different companies, so a little bit tired of doing a project and going around. So we decided to do projects that are set specific, and somebody invite us and tell us, we would like you to talk about, for example, we perform in Berlin, and they say, about the war, such a big issue, yeah, and difficult. So they invite us, and we spent 3 months there, and we just made the wall up and down, we saw the things around, we interviewed people, and we just start learning. And it's a very big issue, so we were really very small. And we are not professionals like historical. We were learning going lots of museums, lots of contradictions. But at the end, there's everyday life. There's people like you sharing their past, their future, their present, their fears, their emotions. So you just have to listen to them. And you just have to watch what's going on and what's leaving behind. And this is the main of the object, this project. You go to a place and you, in a small period of time, you make a kind of performance with the things that people have been telling you about. We are called detectives because we look for clues, like for example in Berlin, to be a bit more clear, of course the presence of the wall has been very strong for everybody. That wall doesn't exist anymore, but it exists still. Lots of people have been have grown up with the wall. Their children have still been brought for the educated with this wall. There is an east and west, and there are plenty of objects everywhere that were from one side or from another side. And there's people that cannot see some objects, and there are people that adore them because they are kitsch. So they talk about our contemporary society. I don't know what it means, but I love it because it's cool. Or I like it because it tells me something about my grandma, although it's not from what I would like. So this is something you just have to put them there, and they start talking. Yes? So it's, I think what I find it fascinating, and I think it's good for this project and for also for when I work with my company, is that we can get a kind of balance. Yes? Don't forget imagining things, but don't forget we live in a world. And we have so many information that we can really take notes. The web page, so you can see.
You talk about accidents. You gave us that thing where you were about to talk about accidents.
Uh-huh.
And you said you'd come back to accidents. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to come back to accidents because you left it was tantalising.
Okay. Well, no, but yeah, it's in the process of creation. Accidents are amazing. Like the most powerful scenes that I got in my shows are by accident. At the beginning, for example, very simple one. Head in the Clouds, I was working with dolls of porcelain. Very beautiful choreography. And then one day it broke. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like broken. It was not. And then I did like that. And suddenly I didn't need the body because my arm was like the body of the puppet, and it was just like this, very small. You will see pictures, like there are, but suddenly it can be like this. I could do like that. I could move like this, and suddenly the body was present, but it came by accident. I never had imagined that, and it was not. Of course, somebody had done that before. I'm sure. I didn't discover anything. I discovered it for me. Because in that time I had never seen something like this, and it was by accident. And in that time it changed my mind. I realized that I didn't need the body. It's a little thing, no? That's what I'm telling you. For example, the accidents for the shoe or the coins, that's plenty of accidents. That's why it's interesting to be conscious of it, to be conscious of the way objects express themselves, because it's a way that you will never be able to imagine, because it comes by accident, by chance, by spending time with them. Somebody that tells you, I'm talking about time. And time, it's interesting because it's such a big issue. Time has to do with the concept of the show or the idea, yes. Time is life, it's present, it's past, it's future, but it has to do something with the way you work with the things. I mean, there's timing to do everything, and this timing, it's the metaphorical way to talk about time. So is this dialogue about timing, time. Yes? And this is a spoiler, for example, of the show. There is a tick-tack, tick-tack, tick-tack during all the show. Sometimes you don't listen to it. It's a clock. Yes. People go inside, they don't listen to it because there's silence, something going on, very little. And it's what happens at night, no? In the houses where there's a clock. You start listening to the time. And sometimes in the show, you listen again to the time. And I like this consciousness of being able of this time. Well, it's not this what we're talking about, but it's a way to tell time is here. And objects and choreography and movement help us to be aware of it. Because an object is a testimony, it's a witness of time, because maybe it has been stopped for a long time, but now it's here, and maybe it's 20 years, 50 years, 60 years, but it's a witness. And in one thing you get material thing, scars on it, it moves one way, it has to do with what we're doing now. So really, it's concrete, and this is fascinating. Yeah, concrete, it's now. Now, but comes from somewhere. So it's big. It's very big.
I have a question about, I like what you said about these objects being witnesses, also through time and off time, and also with how this project that the two of you introduced with objects of the museum and stuff, I was wondering how witnessing can also be a very politically relevant act, and what do we do with the knowledge that has been witnessed, or who is witnessing what, how that influences your work in terms of the messages that you want to portray, or do you leave that very open, or do you sometimes...
It's a very difficult question. When you talk about witness, you talk about people, or you talk about the objects themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess what I was wondering was, well, if you interpret the objects as having this power to witness, then what about your role as how historically accurate do you want to portray their stories, or is it more about interpreting them as metaphors or symbols?
Yes. No, I think it's very political.
Mm-hmm.
And my last show, it's very political. Mm-hmm. And I've got some issues because I'm manipulating a fucking terrible time. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it gets nostalgic. Some people. But I cannot, and I don't want to change also that in a way that what I'm trying to do is to put a frame in a place and say, this is where we are, and this is what really happens sometimes in everyday life. I'm just showing everyday life. But I can see from people that come to see the show, if they are 80s, for example, and they are Spanish and they are living in Madrid, there are old people, mainly the ones, I've seen people from their 20s, even 90s years old, very old. They get like a children, a child. They get very moved, I sing a song in the show that is the fascist song, terrible, under the table like a child. They sing with me. And it's been like, I've done it 800 times. So it happened 7, 8 times. But I don't think that person is fascist. I think that person really, because I do that, because they were doing that every day in their life for 10 years. And I don't want to forget this. We cannot forget what's going on now. But that person belongs to that. This is the metaphor. But that person is the reality. And I cannot change that.